Welcome back to the weirdest official races of the month. This is the series where I show you the strangest, weirdest, funniest, or just most stupid combinations in official iRacing races every month. We're into week 4 of the season, and this week we have IndyCar in the Oval Fixed Series at Dover. This is a ridiculous combination. I think if it's not flat, it's near flat out all the way round, and even if you try and mess with the fuel maps, I hear that the engine will overheat and potentially explode, so watch your temps in this race. Very fast, very dangerous track. One incident is probably going to collect the field. It's a crazy combo. Look at the marbles forming on the top line as well in this clip here. Should be a crazy one. Also in week 4 we have the NASCAR trucks at Five Flags Speedway in both the fixed and open series. Trucks on short tracks isn't that weird of a concept, but Five Flags with the trucks is, not seen very commonly in iRacing. It's an interesting combo, but it's going to be one of them typical short track iRacing races where, there's going to be a lot of caution. So if you don't want to be pacing all the time, might be one to avoid, but if you want to enjoy the chaos, this is one to go for. Finally, in week 4, we have the Gen 3 Supercars, the new addition to iRacing, in the Ringmeister series. These are tough cars. They're a little bit more forgiving than the previous generation, but tough nonetheless. If you ask too much of these cars, they will bite you, despite the fact that they can take a little bit more of a slide and are a little bit more predictable to catch, I feel, than the previous generation. But a car like this at the Nordschleife is going to be a tough one, but very fun and very rewarding when you get it right. Moving on to week 5 of the season, and we have SRX at Slinger. This is a real combination that happen in real life, but it's a bit ridiculous. This track is very small and has very high banking, so the lap times are very short. If there's a wreck on the first lap, you're in lap traffic straight away. It's crazy. It's going to be hard to find an official race in this. It's not a very popular series at all, and this is not a track that a lot of people own, so it's going to be hard to find a race, but if you can, it will be chaos, the good kind. Next up in week 5, we have the NASCAR A-Class series with the next-gen NASCAR Cup Series car at Daytona Road Course. Specifically, the Daytona Road Course that they raced at in 2020, I think, with the weird chicane right before the start-finish line, between NASCAR 3 and 4 and the start-finish line. So, weird layout, never gets used because only NASCAR ever went there in real life, and there's no reason to run it in the sim anyway. They did it in real life because the NASCAR car's brakes would apparently overheat going into turn 1 every lap. I'm not sure that would even be a problem with the next gen, certainly not a problem with the sim, but either way, we have this funny chicane at the end of the lap. And it should be an interesting combo anyway in the NASCAR Cup Series cars. Obviously, we've got a lot of straights. There's going to be drafting if you can keep up with people. And then you wind it down for all these hairpins on the inside. So, interesting road course for NASCAR, I think. Mix of high speed and then super tight corners. Should be interesting to hustle these cars around the infield and then still have a drafting battle on the oval. Last one for week 4. IndyCar again, this time in the open setup and fixed sprint series. They will be at Lime Rock Park Classic as well, so no little chicanes that some layouts of this track do have. So it's going to be a very, very short lap time, obviously very narrow track for such fast cars. This is going to be quite crazy. The battles with some of the high level people here are going to be pretty intense, I'm sure. So this is a risky one, a tough one. Like doing a full race in these is going to be exhausting probably with how quick and fast the corners are going to come at you, but it should be fun. Moving on to week 6, we have the NASCAR trucks again, open and fixed, at the Chicago Street Circuit. This is the only of NASCAR's top 3 series that hasn't raced here in real life, I believe. I think it's normally just Cup and Xfinity that go here, so this is the remaining one we've never seen in real life. I like Chicago Street Course. It's a challenging track in a stock car, and the trucks will be no different, but it's something a bit different to what we've had before with Cup and Xfinity, so I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully get some good races in. Next up in week 7, it's the Legends Road Cup at Tsukuba 1000. This is the short little racetrack that sits just behind the back straight at Tsukuba Circuit. You'll be able to see the main circuit in the background of this footage. It's a tiny little track, good for Legends to be fair, but never gets used. Even the Legends Road Cup last season went to Tsukuba 2000, which is the main track. So This is a track that you'll rarely see in officials. This is a chance to do it. And it's not a bad car to race here. Small little cars, small little track. It makes sense. Next up in week 6, it is the Formula 3 series at Daytona Road Course. And as you can see from the footage, the standing start is on the banked tri-oval, which is a little weird. If you're doing this race, you've got to be careful, because if you try and launch it normally in a straight line, you will probably sort of spin to the right if you're not careful. So be prepared for that pull on the banking. Other people won't. Be prepared for other people to do it in front of you and avoid them, okay? I've not tested the combo myself, but it usually happens. So that's odd, but even beyond that, this is going to be a draft fest because it's Daytona. You know, these cars have big draft effect. Races like Monza and Watkins Glen are always proper pack races, right? This will be no different, but we're on the high banks of Daytona, so should be that, but on a slightly higher level than even it normally is. So big potential for carnage when things get messy into the bus stop. Be aware, but it should be a fun race if you love that kind of draft pack racing that F3 can provide. Next up in week 7 is the Lotus 49 at Indianapolis. While the era is correct, I don't think this car ever raced in the Indy 500, despite Indy 500 being part of the Formula 1 World Championship around this time. But nonetheless, the Lotus 49 series and the community always put an oval into the series once per season, and we are at Indianapolis this season. So it's the big one. We could pretend we're in the Indy 500 of years gone by, even though it's a little bit different. Very interesting car to race on oval, very different certainly to the modern IndyCar, but also everything else you can race on an oval in iRacing probably. This is something very different, a very interesting car, and not as daunting as you may think on oval at least. Going fast I'm sure is very hard, but getting around the track is not too bad. So if you're sort of not comfortable trying this car normally, maybe the oval week is a time to try it. This series doesn't go official all the time, although on Indy Week it may go official quite a bit more than normal. But check the forums. Here's an image on the screen with some of their time slots, but check the forums. I have a Discord too, and they have specific races they do each week in the community, so you can check out the best time to race there. Moving on to week 7 now, it's the NASCAR trucks. Again, they've got an interesting calendar before the season proper starts up for them at Daytona. We're at Stafford, another uncommon short track for these trucks. And I'm going to just repeat what I said of 5 flags. It's going to be chaos, especially because here there's even less banking and it's just a slower track than 5 flags anyway. So probably a little bit more like Martinsville in the way it's going to race with some dive bombs. So be prepared for those, be prepared for carnage, be prepared for cautions, and yeah, maybe avoid it if you don't want to be pacing all day. This is going to be one of the truly most chaotic races that I've covered in this video. IMSA Vintage at Lime Rock Park. Yes, the incredibly insane Nissan GTP combined with the Audi 90 GTO in multi-class around this tiny little track. And once again, it's the version with no chicane. So this is a fast track, lots of commitment, the corners come at you fast, but there's multi-class. Whichever class you're in, you're going to be scared. If you don't know when to race these cars, you can visit camelgt.com. They do go official several times a week, so you can find an official race in this series despite it being not massively populated. And I'm sure they'll turn up for this one as well, despite how crazy the combination is. Last up in week 7 is the Supercars series, the proper series this time, at the Belle Street Circuit. Supercars always has a street circuit on the calendar. I think they rotate between this, Long Beach, and Chicago every season, but it's crazy nonetheless. These are beefy, mean, scary cars, and it's on a tight street circuit. Much like I said about the Nordschleife, applies here too. It's just a different sort of challenge, right? It's walls everywhere, some tight corners, side-by-side racing through them, potentially. So a very challenging track to thread the needle in a car like this, but a challenge I can't wait to give a go. That's it for this month's recap of what I think are the weirdest, most interesting and strangest races going on in iRacing this month. Let me know in the comments below if there are any I've missed, anything I should have included, and what you're going to race this week. Let me know what excites you out of this or what you're planning to avoid. I'll see you in the next one.